Hi, everyone. And hi, Sadie. Happy birthday. Thanks very much for allowing me to be part of this. I'd like to read the beginning of a novella called Enough for Hunger and Enough for Hate that's forthcoming this November in John Taff's Dark Stars anthology. It's a terrific anthology, and my little story finds itself crammed in amongst work by Olivia Llewellyn, Priya Sharma, Josh Mallerman, and the great Ramsey Campbell. So I recommend the book to you. Here's the beginning of my piece. When she had completed her counterclockwise circuit of the lake, Michelle Word turned toward the center of the frozen expanse and began to walk in the direction of the figure seated on the bright yellow bucket in front of the hole in the ice. Walter Iverson, the name she had said so often these past weeks, its meaning had ebbed and flowed, sometimes reducing to a series of syllables, consonants and vowels, yielding sounds of no more significance than the cough of a deer, the scream of a fox, other times expanding to contain all the pain for which this man had been responsible. He was doing his best to ignore the tall woman in the dark green padded coat and jeans drawing steadily closer to him on her hiking boots. Or it was more a case of he was pretending to concentrate on the short fishing pole, whose line he was tugging up and down while secretly taking in everything about her, from the black hair held back by the green scarf wound about her head to the fawn gloves on her hands. She doubted he could pick out the knife clipped to her belt, although his blue eyes returned to her right hip several times. In turn, as she advanced across the scrim of snow covering the ice, which crunched under her boots' tread, she studied him, the heavy tan coveralls over the thick black sweatshirt, itself over 2 or 3 additional pullover shirts, the red and black checked hunting cap, the black knit mittens, the single incongruous detail in the man's outfit, as if he were attempting to portray himself as possessed of a boyish streak, playful even, and not a monster, what he was. As if he could hide his nature when it was there for everyone to see, and his pale skin drawn taut to the lines of his skull, the nose hatchet sharp, the eyes a blue so light it was barely a color at all. His scraggly beard and mustache were a blonde nearing white, not from age, he was 33, though perhaps from stress. The eyes, Michelle judged, were the principal giveaway, their washed-out regard a mix of simmering hostility and appetite restrained, if just. But it was there in the man's body language, in the way he held himself ready to leap up from his bucket into violence immediate and terrible. She could not see any sort of weapon near him. She supposed the auger lying on the other side of him would do in a pinch. But everything about Walter Iverson said he would have no need of an axe, should the occasion arise, an occurrence he would greet smiling as a great opportunity. 10 feet away from him, close enough to counter the wind which sometimes raised its voice over the ice, yet far enough to allow a reasonable chance of reaching the knife should Iverson move, she stopped. He went on playing at not registering her. She wondered if he noticed her similarity to Toby. If so, he did not appear overly concerned by it. Not for the first time, she wished she were sighting him through the scope of the Winchester, with which her father had taught her to hunt and which he had passed on to her now that the Parkinsons had stripped the activity from him. Lining up the sights on Iverson's chest from a blind 200 yards distant would have felt far more secure than this, watching the man's breath steam from his mouth as he continued jigging the rod up and down. She had no need to stare into his eyes as she killed him, to deliver a pithy statement for him to take to hell with him, to squeeze the trigger, watch him jerk as the bullet struck him, maybe fall down dead, maybe struggle to keep himself upright, in which case a second shot would bring to a conclusion the job started by the first, would be fine. Except, according to Dr. Smith, the gunshots would not be sufficient. Oh, they'll make a mess of him, to be sure, she said on the phone, but not enough to kill him. Hell, you could stroll up beside him, shoot him point blank in the face, and it still wouldn't suffice. Having watched a 185-pound buck drop where he stood when she shot it, Michelle found this hard to accept. Yet everything she had learned the past 2 weeks had encouraged her to adopt a more flexible perspective. Thus she was here, at the approximate center of this frozen lake near the summit of a mountain deep in the northern Catskills, the peak rising around half the lake in steep rocky slopes to which spruce stunted by the altitude clung in seeming defiance of gravity, while the remainder of the lake was shored by fields in which stands of spruce, oak, and birch lifted from the snow across whose brittle expanse she had hiked something in the order of a mile, from the pull-off where she had parked her Subaru beside the battered Dodge Ram with the unpainted driver's door. The air was February chilled, the sky a blue equally cold. There was no need for much conversation, any really. All she had to do was drop the stones in her jacket pocket on the ice, turn around, and make the trek back to her car. Soon enough thereafter, Iverson would discover what had been done to him. Having come this far, however, she could not let pass the opportunity to speak to the man. What she wanted from such an exchange, she wasn't certain. She had no expectation of anything Ivor said doing more than confirming what she already knew. In whatever rationalizations he indulged, she had no interest, though she could guess at them with reasonable accuracy. It was as if she had been carried here by the logic, or lack thereof, of the narrative in whose currents she had found herself caught. Perhaps she had been mistaken. Perhaps there were some final words she was due to deliver him. I'll stop there. Thanks very much, everybody.